Exertus.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.
Join us on another exciting adventure of Exertus.
Hello.
And we're live. Welcome
Hello.
to Recent Tartarians.
Or hi.
The Recent Tartarians.
Be well.
Be well, Recent Tartarians.
Well, we're in Alicante. It's a part of Spain that's very, very warm, and there's a lot of stonework here, a lot of stonemasonry. And we're at Victor's girlfriend's abode, and it's very interesting. There's a wall. I don't know how well you can see it yet, but this wall behind us is they actually built it themselves, and it's crazy.
No, we had people do it.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
But that was their idea. And so now you're seeing this interesting part of Spain where there's development from Northern Europeans, and they're coming in and they're mixing with the local architecture. And there's a lot of Moorish style here, and then there's Celtiberian buildings here. So we've been looking into the Agaric people. The Agaric people were the Paleo Celts that lived in this area up to, into Lorca, to Murcia, for thousands of years, supposedly, and then all of a sudden disappeared. And then what was built here was built on their ruins. So what they say is, who are the people who built the stuff? The Moors. Well, what are the Moors? Well, the Moor means the wall in most languages, in Dutch, in Danish, in German, and all these languages. Moor, wall. Yeah.
Also in Danish, as in German Mauer, and we have Mauritania. And
yeah. So talking about Maori people and people coming from the wall, and this idea of walls in general, and the Great Wall and the Great Walls and how they're connected. And so that's been kind of interesting because there's caves with underneath some of these walls and the caverns that are connecting the Celtiberians because of the idea of troglodytes, which was it's so hot here you want to live underground, So
yeah,
that's what. Maybe I'm a reptile, but that's just what you think.
I mean, if you were here and saw how hot it was, you'd understand why there are so many underground dwellings.
Well, I can show you like what the ancients used to call Terrans. It was a nation of allegedly reptilian-like beings who lived underground. And I have a depiction showing Aristotle showing that to some medieval queen. It's very weird because Aristotle's not supposed to be in medieval history, but he is in this book, and he's showing. I can quickly
What's the name
pull
of
that
the
up.
Terrans? Tarragons?
Terrans.
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 Tartarans? Okay.
So
Terrans.
I have it in history busts.
Are you in sharing your screen? Or
No,
on
no.
camera?
I just needed to make sure that I actually do have it in here before I wanted to. But keep on talking. If you.
I was just thinking it's interesting. So, what do you know about the Terrans that you can remember, like where they're from and how old they are?
Not too much on the top of my head, but allegedly, they made cave dwellings and built many cave structures around the world. And I think people know of the cave dwellings in Turkey. There's a lot of them, huge, massive underground cave.
Gobekli Tepe.
How do you
exactly.
How do you spell Terrans?
Terrans.
Interesting.
I think I might have. Where is it? History busts. Okay, yeah, here it is. You see?
Want me to share your screen?
I'll share my screen. Yeah,
I've
shown it.
What's weird is in Starship Troopers, there's the Terran Federation, which is the government in the Starship Troopers. Is there the Terran Federation, and they're after the end of the 20th century when all the world falls apart and everyone gets there's more hangings on televised television than ever, is the idea that the Starship Troopers all unite under the the Federation of Terran.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's spelled the same way.
Wow. Well, this is at P here. This is a Terran,
Wow.
and it has a bird-like. It had bird feet, and it has a tail of what looks like to be of a lion, and has scales here. And this is Aristotle.
I remember you showed this one a while ago.
Yeah, it's from a book called Civitas Veri, like True City. It means, and it can be found on archive.org. Civitas Veri. It has been shown before by Martin Liedtke and stuff like that, but every time somebody shows it, they focus on all the forts that are in it, and they forget that this is allegedly Aristotle, and this is Queen Margarita of Hungary, I think. Let's just see. T.M. Aristoteles, and it says Regina here, but in another one of the depictions it says Margarita Regina, and she's wearing fleur-de-lis, which is medieval.
And the symbol
allegedly.
the symbol of the bee, allegedly.
Hmm.
So it's this, the flower with the bee, and it's both one and the other. It's kind of the inside pattern. There's like the bee is inside of the flower. They fit together, and they represent two stars, the twin stars, Sirius and the bee star.
But here you can see at P, which was the monster, right? It says Avaritia ipsa specie monstrosis or monstrosa. So it's a monster. And it's called avaricia, and that's from like ave in Spanish, which is bird, I think. So it is bird.
Avaricia, that's avarice, right?
Yeah, but I think it goes to ave, which means bird, I think, in Spanish.
Oh, so when I read that, I was thinking the avaricious bird or the hungry bird.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, so bird, and here you have the bird feet of the Terran. I would think this is a Terran because it's depicted going underground, and the Terrans were they were told to be cave dwellers on the ground, and there were also another race which were the fish people called the Dogons, and there's a Dogon tribe in Africa that has lots of stories about the Dogons. And they insist that it is history. And
Dogonites,
the mitre hat.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's basically going back to those people, and there's a huge history about how they might have seeded the human race. But I'm not researching that. It's just something I know from other researchers.
The whole papal fish hat comes from the Dogonites, doesn't it?
It does.
It's interesting. Belgium and France's connection, the Flanders and the Dutch, and colonizing the Dogon regions from Niger to the Congo.
Oh yeah,
all of that area. Those people can speak fluent Chinese as soon as the Chinese teach it to them. Fluent French when the French taught it to them, and they learned. I mean, some of the best African French come from the Congo region, from people who spoke Dogon as or the languages of Dogon, which are like actually many languages that are all part of the Dogon language. But there's only about 1.6 million of them right now. So they've been really suppressed. They've been kind of destroyed as populations go, and there's also kind of a mixture of them with other tribes. So if you go into regions like deep in the Congo, you'll find part Dogon, part Pygmy, and you go further into the village, and there's a village in between the village, which is a mixture of people from both villages. And so people change and segregate as they get deeper and deeper into different habitats and environments. But yeah, it's pretty crazy because they're usually a small community at a time. So they find a region and then they'll live in nature for forever in that area, and then people will spread from there.
Well, also you see here, this is Aristotle again. He's wearing a hat, which has never been shown before. I've studied philosophy. I'm a bachelor in philosophy, and I've never seen Aristotle wearing a hat. Never, let alone.
That's the Hermetic style hat too, like Hermes. So
yeah,
that's interesting.
It would seem like it, and he's humoring, he is showing something to Queen Margarita of Gallia Regis, so a French queen.
Yeah, Gallia would be France.
Yeah,
But
so it's really weird.
The thing that's weird also about the Dogon, and I don't know if this fully is the Terran thing, but like if we're talking on the same level, like one of the things that's interesting with the Dogon, I was just checking out, is Marcel Grouat, which is a French anthropologist, has found evidence that that it seems almost impossible that the information that they have in their mythology about stars and extrasolar information could have been gathered from a naked eye. That they probably needed some sort of technology. And that it was maybe lost after some sort of a major catastrophe, but the information was saved because all the research shows that they had, basically understood the Digitarius star, which they called Poltolo, and the Sorghum star, which is Sirius A. So the fact that they could see the twin stars and the stars on top of each other, even in and of itself, is like incredible. They shouldn't have had the ability without higher technology, but also they were able to know about the rings of Saturn, and they knew about many of the moons of Jupiter. So I mean, it's kind of interesting how much awareness they had as a people, and how much of our space mythology is basically from Dogon. Which, if you look at the Google space thing, look it up. Sometimes check out Sirius. The star is blacked out. It's just censored.
Yeah, it's also called it's both. It's called the White Star, so it's kind of weird that it's blacked out.
Right, and that's interesting. And there's also the
what's also called
twin.
The White Star, or I think it was the company running the Titanic, White Star Lines.
White Star Lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. That's very interesting. So Sirius comes up a lot, and you start looking.
Well, Sirius was the marker of the inundation of the Nile. The inundation, right? Which is related to the sinking of Titanic, because on which day did the Titanic sink? Text day.
October 12th, 1912.
No, it was on text day.
August 12th, 1912.
No, isn't that the shit?
April?
Yeah, April the 4th. Isn't that text day?
Yeah, I think it's April 14th or something like that.
Something like that.
I don't do enough taxes.
Well, I remember having read
April 15th, April 14th, right?
Yeah, the RMS Titanic sank there. That was on text day. That is related to the
April 15th.
When all the taxes come in.
April 15th, 1912, Victor.
Yeah, exactly. So that's on text day. And that's what the inundation of the Nile related to Sirius about. Because when you have your text day, it's an inundation of current, which is water, or in the legal world, liquids. So this is where they generate their revenue, and that is why you had the White Star Lines doing the Titanic ritual. It was a ritual to Sirius and the inundation of money, and that's why a lot of people made the Federal Reserve just after that, because it was the inundation of the Nile. So I hope that makes sense.
And also explains maybe what the dog has to do with guarding the River of Styx and Canaan.
Also,
Anubis,
the Vatican. Cana is from dog.
And it's the Canaan Majoris is the other name for Sirius. Is the canine star, dog star, Canaan Majoris.
Yeah. Also, Canis is also a Latin species of some snakes. So you also have the serpent in the cane, or the can. But yeah, Spanish word for dog, old Spanish word for dog is can. So Vatican, and Vati is father, so father dog, which could be Anubis in at least one respect. But you can do all sorts of things with the Vatican word, because etymologically it's related to prophecies of a serpentine hill, if I recall correctly. So there's both the serpent and the dog in the Vatican word, which would be Anubis and perhaps also Lucifer. And we know that they proclaim Lucifer as God as of, was it 2012, something like that? They made a formal declaration of Lucifer being God that can be viewed on YouTube. So
one of the things that they often like to tell you is, like, by the time you're looking at the stars, they're supposedly dead, because like the time it's supposed to take for the light to travel all that many light years is so many thousands that they're already gone. Well, by whatever kind of weird logic that they're trying to throw at you, it makes more and more sense to look at the other solar luminaries and to figure out whom they are, because like Betelgeuse and Monoceros, Sirius. And Regal, all of the Beta Orion star, Beta Orionis, like they're all like the Orion's belt stars and the Orion's arm stars. Each one of those is in a series of about like 7 bright stars that are the most bright outside of the solar luminaries that we consider like the planets, like the Mercurial messenger, the Venus messenger, the Martian messenger. Like each one of those is like a much closer one, and they have a different. There's a difference to them. There's a difference to the way that we maneuver around our own constellation in the way they're presented to us. So it's really worth knowing the names of these little guys, and because they're the hidden hands.
But this was what this is my formal start of the presentation. This the other stuff. This was an introduction. So now we're getting into what I wanted to show, and I really think that Mike will love this because this is Babylon in Cairo, and look at all these Starforts, Mike.
Yeah, that's really amazing.
Look at this, Bulag, Starfort, all around the Niles, and it has like this cigarette Starfort old style. But you definitely see Starfortage here, and this is the old style, completely rectangular. And
this is the same. This is the same castles you see in Great Britain, type of style.
Yeah.
All these pointed buildings, it's pretty interesting how they've found like the mountain areas, and they built it on top of these mountains. What does it represent?
But this is a Moorish Starfort. It has to be. Even in both narratives, this is a Moorish Starfort.
Right.
So this is pretty cool.
Now. How old is this picture?
Did you see that image yet of Beijing having a distinct Tartar and Chinese part?
Yeah, yeah. It has the Forbidden City was a Tartarian city.
Yeah.
I will get to something that will explain that just in a minute, Mike.
Excellent.
Okay, so just before going deeply into the Moorish Tartar stuff, I found this weird article commemorating huge hailstones.
This is crazy.
And I, as a globe Earth skeptic and a flat earther, have hailstones for quite a while. I don't get how thunderstorms and winds can create huge hailstones, such as even at the size of a baseball. I don't buy their explanation of how winds blow them up and down by the process of accretion, as they call it, and because it has never been observed. If accretion is really a thing, it should be observed all the time, and we would have like ample evidence, videograph of it. If I'm wrong about that, please explain to me how even like a glider like Mike couldn't have possibly watched that as a natural phenomenon.
I don't have nothing for you.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't go as far yet. Like, I think I still think it makes sense that I've seen high winds blow things like.
Until you show me it.
Yeah.
I will not
buy
buy
it. How would you then explain like aeroplanes get caught in hailstorms, don't they? How do these things?
I've heard those stories as well.
I've
heard stories about some pilots claiming that they went into a hailstorm but somehow the passengers didn't feel it. I don't know. But I'm open for suggestions on this. I don't buy the official narrative on hail, and especially not if this is true, because huge hailstones.
Read this. Go ahead.
There are numerous well-authenticated cases of hailstones, or hailstones they call them here, weighing 0.5 pound and more. But claims which go far beyond this meager weight are made. Stones of 6 to 8 pounds are said to have fallen in Moor in 1719, and the missionary, Father Hugh, who ought to be a credible witness, records the fall in Tartary in 1843 of a block of ice as big as a millstone, which took 3 days to melt. It is cold there. In May 1802, a Hungarian village reported and read this, Andreas.
111.
Yeah, pound block, requiring 8 men to move it.
1,100 pound block.
Yeah.
So half a ton of ice. That's a single piece of hail.
Yeah.
Huh. All right.
They call it a chunk of ice, like, and in Tipu's time, one as big as an elephant was said to have fallen near Serigapatam. Oh, well, These are some hailstones. I don't know if they're like joking and they're like, these are some hailstones, bro, or they are like, oh, this is just some of the hailstones we can.
It's
write
probably
about
the former going in the. Those are some hailstones.
The credible witness.
here. Oh, Father Hugh.
So I figured you might want to see also Father Hugh, the credible witness of Tartary, because this was interesting when you showed me that. I went and looked like, well, who is this guy who's supposedly a credible witness? Like, who should be a credible witness? So his name is Evariste Regis Hugh.
Oh my God.
So
Sorry.
type EVAR Evar
I don't know.
IS
Father Hugh.
HU, but this is his real name. This is
Oh
how-
my God. Okay, wait a second, guys. Evariste
Regis Hugh.
Regis Hugh.
Yeah. And he changed his name for American spelling to Father Hugh, but his real name was Evariste Regis Hugh, or Hugh, and he was also known as Abbé Hugh, and he was a French Catholic Lazarite missionary and traveler, and he was very famous, apparently, in the 1811 to 1850, 1860s when he died, for his account of the lands of Qing era and Mongolia, then known as Tartary, and especially the then almost unknown Tibet, and his remembrances of journey in Tartary, Tibet, and China. And so that's a pretty crazy book. That's like 1840s, 1845, 1846, just at the right times for the Franco Wars, and during the the times when things were just had either fallen apart from the 1811 period or had been co-opted and were in the process of being taken over. So his works are considered to be like very picturesque and very they explain a lot in vivid detail. But it's weird, we hadn't seen this like even up to this point. So in looking into Tartary, I've been trying to find all these old books, and he's got a number of really important ones, like including the Chinese Empire, which is all about Tartary and the Midlands of Tartary into the the point of being controlled and having 52 different kinds of people, blonde people, black people living in China. It's pretty crazy the amount of stuff that
Moorish Chinese. Okay, so he's a guy to look into.
Also, his friend Nikolai Przhevalsky. This is the guy he traveled with. If you go up to the top of his page, I think it says with his companion.
Maybe further down.
In his works, where's works
here
with Nikolai Przhevalsky. This guy I'm very suspicious of, and he's a Russian geographer, a military man who was traveling with him at one point, and it sounds like a lot of the information. He's Polish. He was a Polishman, but Belarusian because he was Polonized Belarusian or Ukrainian. So this might be a link also, because he looks like he's like a military-born guy who showed up after the fall, and he's raised in the military, and he's hiding a lot of stuff. But he ended up in Central Siberia and even went up as far as Central Asia and to Tartary.
That's interesting, but let's just call that also a
side note.
A side note, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna close some stuff here. Oh, that was
Let's go back to that. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna get back to the hailstones. Okay, so this was the hailstones. Okay, so here we have some accounts about Barbary being destroyed by terrible earthquakes between Fez and Morocco. Fez, which was, I think, to the southwest of Morocco, the current day Morocco. That the earth opened in fixed places, whence issued innumerable grasshoppers and hideous monsters, which destroyed as many persons as came in their way, and that the town of Tetuan was shaken down and the inhabitants buried under its ruins. So it's kind of like, is it saying mud flood apocalypse with monsters and grasshoppers and earthquakes and the earth opening up from below? It's pretty eerie. So I'm gonna leave you at that, because we're gonna go into some Mandan stuff, Nathan, of the brief history of Dakota land, and it is very interesting that they talk about traditions at first seeming groundless, point back to the time of Adam and Eve. So here again we have the biblical story in the U.S. and the flood, and to an ancient civilization, establishing clearly that they came from where? Eastern-owned countries, China and Tartary. across the Bering Strait and to the shore of North America, drifting into the Rocky Mountains where they made their first home. Does that sound like something that's familiar to you, Nathan?
Quite a bit. The Algonquin and the Sioux, they have a storied past of battling, well, white people. And the Sioux, especially, the Sioux were the Sioux were barbarous when it came to relations with the Mandan tribe. And so they were instrumental in finishing the extinction of the Mandan tribe and other white tribes that had been settled in the area for quite a while. We mean hundreds of years. And so
and what about the Rocky Mountains?
The what?
The Rocky Mountains? What didn't the Mandan point to the Rocky Mountains of the landing place of the Ark of Noah or something very similar?
Yeah, the tribes of this area have their own flood story. And so the Rockies themselves, having been hollowed out by the US government and others, the fact that Denver is incredibly occulted can actually be reasonably explained by the idea that we've all been here and that we just kind of marched the US West into an old war zone that had settled down to tribes already.
So does the Bible really make it look like it has to be that there's just one boat, one Noah? Or is it plausible that there's a number of different ones and he's just one of the survivor accounts?
So
there definitely could be multiples.
For that. I have a quick answer for that because I found a book and it has been showed on Lady Mutt's channel and it showed firstly on Martin Liedtke's channel. It's called Biblica Sacra or something. Embarrassing that I cannot exactly remember the title. But if you go into Lady Mutt's channel, or just Mutt, M-U-D, and then channel, she has a long playlist of going through each of the pages in this book. And it's an old world atlas from the 1600s, probably made by a Jesuit. But it shows the people expecting a great deluge, constructing numerous great arcs, and putting a lot of people in them, not animals as such. Is very different from what we have been told in the common biblical story.
Starfort, maybe?
There were no Starforts, unfortunately, but there was a lot of. You see Solomon's temple very close up. I've shown pictures of it before. It's a very unique book, and I would suggest either try finding it through Martin's, maybe a bit back down, or go to Lady Mutt's channel, where you can find it in like a very neat playlist with wonderful music and such. So yeah, we're discussing the U.S. and its relations to the biblical story, and also how Tartary and the Moorish Empire of Al Morocco in the U.S. may have been either one and the same, or very closely related. So this is our subject for tonight. Did you have some closing remarks, Nathan, on the Mandan tribe in Dakota? Or maybe not only closing, but elaborating?
Only as a cliffhanger. Referring to Solomon, I've been looking lately at where Solomon's temple may have actually been. And I'm beginning to believe it was on the western coast of one of the Americas.
Yeah. I've also heard that there is a Temple University in Pennsylvania, and there's I know that it could be another place, and there could have been more temples of Solomon, perhaps. But there is an article saying that there was a Temple of Solomon in Pennsylvania, and it's pretty weird.
Yeah, but, I think there were many copies, but where the man himself lived and sailed his navy out of geographically is explained to be the west coast of the Americas.
Yeah.
So at some point we'll get into
Could that have been the west coast of the Americas at that point? Could have been further inland than we think, perhaps. But
Yes.
but yeah,
referring to his navy.
yeah. Okay. But yeah, if we take that would be in the time where California was perhaps an island. So yeah, it's hard to say, right? But I don't know. But here it says that this guy, he believed the Dakotas were from China and Tartary. So again, more people thinking that. And the guy who changed the thought of North American Indians being from Tartary was Hugo Grotius, which is the founder of international law, and he's a dickhead. Let me just tell you, I don't want to go too much into Hugo Grotius, but him and Immanuel Kant set us up for legalism and the legal system, at least philosophically. And they were instrumental for the Jesuits in gaining their sway over the minds of men in Europe. So he's not a good guy. And he was like, no, the North Americans weren't from Tartary or Scythia because their customs are nothing alike. And he's just lying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a plain lie because they were very much alike.
Especially looking at the pre-Han styles of China, like the real Hmong people or or any number of the different tribal people of the Ainu, or in Formosa, like the different Taiwanese indigenous people, their cultures, they have feathers in their hair.
Yeah, they have feathers. And they share tobacco.
And teepees.
They share tobacco. And they were so close to each other. The land masses were connected once. It's like, who is this? Who is Hugo Grotius? Like, fuck off.
It was actually a pretty funny. Trey Parker, who makes South Park, made his first film, Cannibal the Musical, which is about the Donner Party going across Colorado and nearly dying until they had to eat themselves. But it's a musical and it's rather funny. And in it, he meet Japanese Indians. They're Indians and they're like, we are Indians. You do not believe us? We have teepees. Like, it's right in there.
Oh yeah, that's so weird. Indians. But also here, in China informs that a vessel lately sailed along the northeast coast of Tartary, 17 degrees latitude, landed several persons to make inquiry that the natives are very much resemble the Americans of Hudson's Bay in their features and their complexions, and in their dialect was much like that of those of Labrador and about Quebec.
And you have to think, like, these are not, like, untraveled people saying this. These are people who've been to these places. They've seen many different kinds of people, and they're seeing, like, oh, this is like this part here because I've taken boats all over the world. They're very well traveled.
Yeah. And also here is a very interesting...
the Khan of Tartary, Genghis Khan of Tartary.
And also how he's crying to Allah, a man of Mary instead of Khan of Tartary. I'm not going to read all of the stuff, but
let me do it. It seems like fun.
Okay, do it.
A minstrel once, as chance befell, happened where the Moslem Tartars dwell. Under the walls of a princely pile, he sang his song, yet grieving the while, thinking how very fine 'twould be to reign a Khan of Tartary. Genghis Khan of Tartary, weary with ruling his kingdom three, looked from his towers that echoed o'er the Yensel's sullen roar, and saw the bard in the court below. Allah, he sighed, that I were so, a man of merry minstrelsy, instead of Khan of Tartary. So wanting to trade his empire to be a vagabond, right?
Yeah, but I think
what you don't have.
Well, also it's interesting because the way we're told in history things are is like there's a kingdom, but it's not really there because what it was a bunch of nomads that didn't have anything.
They weren't Muslims.
Yeah.
Like, so he's have you heard about Genghis Khan, the Muslim, ruling over two parts of
there was a whole discussion going on in the chat last week about that too.
Right.
Well, yeah. I'm just like, I don't feel like many people have heard that.
Well, and changes.
That was during during the Is Christ Buried in Japan episode, actually.
Like to live in Tartary? Just sign up here. The alphabets of Ethiopia and Tartary have 202 letters.
Isn't that interesting that Ethiopia, the Moors in Africa, and Tartary have the same amount of letters. Moors and Tartary, black and yellow again.
Every time. East Africa is so like Eritrea it's got the exact same boats that they have in Scandinavia and in
They have the dragon on their boats in the Vikings.
I mean, there's some correlation to the boat traveling, and we keep looking at how people wandered over the mountains, and I think we need to consider also how much they took boats places.
Also, get this, that every citizen of Arkansas is naturally, genuinely proud of the fact that a Chinese Tartary wall
La la la.
could be built around our Commonwealth. Isn't that alluding to that the wall of China is actually Chinese Tartarian?
It's what I told these people all along, right? Not a book study. Like, I think the Chinese wall has nothing to do with Chinese. It's a Tartary wall.
And if you saw here on my history busts, you have the Porta Tataricum here.
We might eventually call.
Look at that.
It might eventually have a wall of Mexico. Think about that, right? And
that would also be
built by America or by the Mexicans, but that's their whole idea: Tartary China wall.
Yeah, and look, it says here. This is the Tartarian port. It's on the north side, so they could enter the wall from. So if they wanted to keep the Tartar out, we have to accept that the Tartars could just go into the wall and go up
with elephants.
And we also have to accept that it was called the Tartarian port at the Chinese wall.
La la
So
la la.
I don't know how people will lift that. But yeah, I will go back to the other, the Chinese Tartary wall. And here I've read that before. It's about Hokata, going into,
Yeah, that was a good one.
This is a very good one. At least about, year 1200 in arms, and his successor, Hokata, son of Conquista, which would be Genghis Khan again, following his father's bloody footsteps, whilst he prepares his sons with 3 vast armies. And they marched to different countries, and Hokata marched victoriously into North America.
That's interesting how this uses in English the double S F thing, the Germanic double S.
Yeah.
There is scarce a city in Tartary that boasted less than 1,000 temples, and to flee, is that the same letter, or is that Canigular, or is that Conquista, first king of Tartary, about the year 1200 in arms, and his successor, Hokata, following his father's bloody footsteps, whilst he prepared his son with 3 vast armies. The eldest son.
Also note the question mark here.
Yeah.
Pretty weird.
That is weird. The eldest son, Yakis, or Jakob, maybe, and marched westward with 30,000 hordes. Batho drew with a great army towards the north, and Taglautis, being the youngest, fell to the Moors, the country above Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
Hokata himself marched victoriously into the North America.
Okay, so get this. Hokata marched victoriously into North America. Like, did he put up a fight? Marched victoriously? What does that mean?
Look at this. He marched victoriously into North America, where he subdued the Persians, Turks.
Well,
yeah.
No. I'd say these are 3 different things. So you say these are like listing his achievements. So first North America, and then unrelated, subdued also the Persian kingdom.
You don't think that infers that that's in North America?
Know. Yeah, because he marched there, and then they state afterward that he subdued the Persian kingdom and the Turks.
Because he marched victoriously into it, being in the initial part of it, and then you don't subdue something that you march victoriously into. Like,
why not? Yeah, you do. He subdued the nation that he conquered. Instead of just conquering them, he subdued them.
Okay. Let this be up to the.
You're wrong, Victor. I disagree.
It's a grammatical interpretation. They want you to know immediately that he was victorious, and then they list the deeds in which he was victorious. And it all
right after
that it's happened in North America.
The Tartars of Scythians is right there. After the Great Army, you got the information from the different monks, and they sent by the Pope, innocent to Hokkadah, the witnesses the great number of the Tartars of Scythians. So, I mean, there's maybe the several people spread far and near over Tartary. I mean, it's right there. This is just like a huge connection of all different people, and here's a number of them: the Viz, the Oshets, the Nuri, the Galoni, the Fugetes, the Badini.
And Pliny only reckons some of them.
Right.
And look, some of them are called nomads.
That's even one.
And I think this implies that nomads is not, denoting an activity. It's denoting a people.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think the Agathrissi or whatever, I think that could actually be the Agarics, from what I'm finding.
And also the Anthropophagy, if you look, there's
the Hyperboreai.
And the Hyperboreai, yeah. The northern wind. And also the Georges, the Khazars here. And Sakoris, I don't know these. And what number would the inhabitants make up that live in America? In Tenerife, Virginia, Florida, New Spain, Guadalajara, Guatemala, Terra Firma, New Granada, Peru, Chile, Rio de la Plata, Brazil, Guyana, New Andalusia. So they're alluding to
they're telling you exactly the major key points in South America and North America that we're finding the neoclassical architecture, and saying those places are the places that made up the inhabitants of this great connected people.
Officina Gentium, as we will come to.
Right,
Officina Gentium.
Don't get too far ahead of yourself.
Yeah.
But that's your gold. So
here again, more confirmation. The origin of North American Indians. John Jocelyn held in 1638 that they were of Tartar descent.
They were Tartars.
And also saying Scythians. And they're I think this is the early stages of them trying to confuse people with that the Tartars are not pure Scythians. But I'm not going to debate that. The three races, Malays, Tartars, and Scandinavians, contributed to make up the great American people. So it was an old confirmation. Okay, sorry.
Zoom.
The Malays here.
The Malays, the Tartars, and Scandinavians.
Now,
Scandinavians.
Just below, it's funny to read that James Adair seems to have been fully convinced that they were the descendants of the Israelites, the lost tribes, and after 30 years residence among them, published in 1775 an account of their manners and customs, from which he deduced his conclusions.
Yep. So there you go. The Moorish Hebrew Israelites and the Tartar and the American Indians.
So could there be something about 12 tribes, 12 boats? Could that be part of the thing? There's 12 different destinations.
Each bloodline has an arc.
Tribes, 12 nations.
Each destination slightly different, but then they end up connected to each other because they were already.
Yeah, and I think this says something about the Mandan tribe.
Atlantartaris.
Okay, yeah. How formidable a power the Redheads? Wouldn't that be the Mandan? Demonstrated when they had captured nearly half of the provinces of the empire. I think that would be of Manchuria. Yep.
Manchuria, at one point, there's 100 million people that died in the Great Influenza, and there's the Spanish flu basically caused the death of the Manchurian order. And now what we see in China is I think there's a few thousand Manchurians left. So for perspective, the Manchurians are a basically lost race that used to run.
What do you think about this, Nathan? About Mandans going into Manchuria?
Give me 1 second.
Are we there?
I'm finishing it. Give me a sec.
Let's go back to that video.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I thought we lost the connection. I nearly.
So it's interesting looking at this idea about redheads, because the Gaelic, the Agaric, the other thing we were talking about was the city of the sun, often having redheads, and Lorca being Heliorca, which was Heliopolis, and there's all these sun cities that have redhead people. If you find the giants in Chile had red hair, the Khazarians had red hair. It looks like Genghis Khan had red hair. Muhammad's red turban is supposed to be resembling red hair, or to symbolize that he had red hair is something that a lot of people say. So there's something interesting about that. That the redhead people also, how many of them are left? I think it's like less than 2% or something.
And they're strangely demonized.
Yeah,
in a way that is weird. Like gingers have no souls.
yeah. There's modern
yeah,
thing
it's
and there's
like
a classical.
that.
You know,
That's a classical
in
and
New
modern
York,
thing, yeah.
in New York, in the 18th and 19th century, the Irish were really, they didn't like them, and they felt like it was weird that they were invading. They actually had a party. Yeah,
That is
it's weird
yeah,
because
and every
especially because like
Scottish
there's some interesting
person
stuff
that
about
they
phytomelanin and how they exist in different weather. But there are a number of them in Australia and in Tasmania.
Mm.
Yeah, but there's less and less Scots. It's a sad, sad, sad world.
Hmm.
Well, Li Huang Shuang, now known, and this is something else I think interesting. There's Shuang and Shang and Shen and Zen. Those sounds are very like, you find those in Italian a lot, so there's some sort of a connection. Now the Doyen viceroys who have been upon the aged shoulders the task of mediating between his government and the aggrieved nations, for the destruction of whose representatives it must render an accounting. So this is interesting because what it starts talking about is like, okay, there's some major, major disasters that hit many, many nations, maybe 50, maybe 100, but more than just 2 or 3. And this empire is now supposed to account for the devastation and for the rebuilding afterwards, and it's almost impossible to do, and it's been impossible for centuries.
Yeah. Did you get a chance to read it, Nathan?
The people of China, noticeably
but it
since
doesn't
Taiping
denote
Rebellion,
the
have been
name of the people. It's
No. So yeah, I'm thinking redheads.
Well, it's
could be
possible
like-
Manchurians were redheads. If that's what we're saying here, is that the Manchurians might not have looked like Han until the Song Dynasty, when things started to change a lot and they started marrying in more. But that there was Manchurians that were actually redheads in the original times, and it's hard to know anything after the Spanish flu because in 1914 or 17. Millions of them died, and it was all because they had taken chickens and soldiers from America. Originally, they called it the American military flu, the American Army flu, and
But we could
it
perhaps,
spread.
if you read this, maybe we can come to it. So it says, perhaps one of these days there may be the telling of how Mehmet el Kabuli, Mehmet the Red, he was called because of his flame-colored beard.
El Kabul means red. Kabul.
Oh.
Right.
Interesting, I didn't know that. Fell in love with the brown-eyed Persian girl. So yeah, High Tartary, crossing the brittle desert of High Tartary. So this was
The
where
brittle desert of High Tartary.
Yeah, but Mehmet sounds like he's been in Samarkand here. He sounds like a Muslim, and he has a red beard, which is pretty interesting. Again with the redheads, here they are listing a lot of. I don't think this text was so interesting. It was just about the red hair, the red beard guy here, Mehmet.
There is some
somebody
interesting stuff about the Green Lion thing. Zoom back in there. Where's that lion thing? There's all the gates of the Lord of the Lions and the Barbary fig. The grains, like there's certain symbols in this that seems like they could be important.
Yeah, that would sound like some Persian symbolism, perhaps. But it was mainly for the red-haired Muslim guy here. That was pretty interesting. And yeah, this is then talking about migration of different people, and especially the Tartars. So Edward Bearwood advances the opinion that the New World was first peopled by the Tartars because America was always better populated on the side towards Asia than on that towards Europe.
Interesting.
Second, because the genius of the Tartars and the American Indians, who are nomads, again, which just denotes the people. I think they're missing stuff together here and never applied themselves to any art, which is weird if they're the genius, right?
It also doesn't make any sense when you think about. I mean, living in America, we go to these, reservation museums and things, and you see like all the crazy pottery, like watertight weaving baskets, crazy technology, really, that they're now using in heart surgeries. That he's like, they take Bolivian women who do crazy knot threading to make blankets, and they make heart valves in that same weaving.
And there's also a guy here who attacks the hypothesis, not science, but attacks the idea that the Canaanites were cannibals and sacrificed their children to their idols. He adds that it nowhere appears in the scriptures that the Canaanites were man-eaters. So it's interesting. There's a lot of different people chiming in with their opinions in all of these articles.
Is the wild beasts. So these large beasts that could not have come from the European side, they thought must have come over great land masses from Australasia and through Tartary, but reached by way of Tartary
by the Officina Gentium,
which is interesting because we do have mammoths on both sides.
Yeah.
So
this was found by Richard Lopez, or at least shown by him, a Tartarian or hunting Indian inhabiting the inland parts of North America. So there's really no doubt like so many people were invested in this heavily and wrote books about it and like the guy who spent 30 years. So yeah, Tartary and the Americas and the Moors. They will get more into the Moors in a bit. Let me just see. This is the Officina Gentium. So it may be interesting to prosecute the inquiry how far through the media of language and manners the Malays and the Polynesians can be traced to Chinese Tartary as the Great Officina Gentium. The Great Officina Gentium would denote a great melting pot of perhaps a great empire, and from where or from whence people would go out and populate new areas, perhaps in the wake of a great catastrophe. This is what kind of denotes this term, this elusive term, Great Officina Gentium. So Officina Gentium is people. Officina would denote something to do with working or something official, but working. So a great working melting pot. That is
the municipal office or the public works.
Yeah.
I've often thought that Polynesia might have something to do with poly, which is the Greco-Tartaric root for four or many more.
Yeah.
So if there's something about that can be found, the North Asians or the Polynesians.
And I would think that the Polynesians are very closely related to the Maori, and the Maori are just a dead ringer for Moor.
The more you look into I think you said you were going to go into this a little bit more, but like the Latter-day Saints, they talk about 5 different tribes that were very broadly different, but were connected with each other living in the Americas.
Yep.
They were connected to, and they were not just the same ones from Asia, they were Israelites.
Yep.
So it's weird because we're finding that makes perfect sense and fits into this.
Yep. And here there's a guy in here called, I know you love this, Nathan, his admiration, a Tartar leader by the name of Amorsana.
That's your new nickname, Amorsana.
Yeah, should be totally your new nickname.
Because he created trouble.
It's funny because, Amor.
The Chinese did defeat him, and he was compelled to take refuge in Russia, where he lived for some years. When he died, the Emperor of China claimed his body, but the Russian government declined it allowed to be removed, as it was then customary to offer in various dignities to the bodies of any dead person who had offended the Chinese government at any time and who had escaped punishment in life by fleeing to any other country. Whoa, what have I done? Can I go down?
Yeah.
How does that work? Oh, I see how your computer works. Okay. Provided, of course, the body could be secured. About the year 17, I can't go down the page. About the year 1770, nearly 1 million Chinese people who had lived in Russian territories again became residents of Chinese territories. So think about that. At one point, you're Russian.
Repatriation.
At one point, you're Russian, and the next day, you're Chinese. And it's been going on. You've been Russian for hundreds of years. I mean, you know, and all of a sudden, boom, like technically all your life, but more than that, like all of your family's life for generations have been Russian. And sure, at that point, China is, you know, in Russia, it's like Russia's government is so far west, and China's government is so far east. You were never neither. You were neither one of them. You were Tartarian. You were the thing in the middle, and you're just being passed back and forth like a problem between two divorced
Idiots.
Yeah.
Well, right now, if let's say Texas were to secede from the rest of the states, and now Texas is a country, and Dallas is the new capital of a country, and you happen to live in Tulsa, Oklahoma. If Texas takes Oklahoma, now you're Texan, not American. So that happened all the time. And so there have been a ton of repatriations where they say, give us our people, these are our people. And so their allegiance changes and they are the last to know.
Wow. Yeah, that hits home. This is about Genghis Khan and how this author says about Genghis Khan's rulership. Imagine, if you can, a territory nearly 10,000 miles in width, from east to west, stretching from Budapest in Austria to the Pacific Ocean, under the sway of one man.
That's what we're talking about. We're at a level of complete connectivity. It was obviously a point when they could communicate quick enough that was possible.
Yep. And this man was called Sinuchin. About 750 years ago, there was born in a tent on the eastern boundaries of what is now known as Manchuria, of Mongolian parents, Moorish parents, a child who was named Sinuchin. His father was the chieftain of a border tribe of some considerable importance, but by no means of paramount importance, in that region. When that child was only 13 years old, his father died, and he was called upon to ascend his father's throne and to rule over as unruly race as can be well imagined. Yeah, by you guys, right? For 31 years, this young man waged incessant war with neighboring tribes and kingdoms until he became 44 years old. Kind of like weird. 44 is a master number, right?
Right.
Practically all China, Tartary, Tibet, Korea, and indeed nearly all of Eastern Asia was under his sway, a territory more than twice the area of the entire United States. He then proclaimed himself emperor and became known to posterity as Genghis Khan, which means the perfect warrior. So Genghis Khan is a title and not his real name, which is
his real name
Tinuchin.
Tinuchin.
Yeah, so I wanted to get that out there.
Which is a very Native American sounding name, right?
Right.
It sounds like a Lakota name.
And here we have Tartary lumped in with all these nations, which are pretty Moorish. Egypt, Syria, Nubia, Nubian in Egypt, kind of like below Egypt, Siam, Peru, Ava, Cochin, China, and Tartary. So very interesting, all these lumped together. And this is the Jews.
Tinuchin.
This is Tinuchin or Genghis Khan.
I really need that mask. So if anybody knows where to get that mask, just send it our way.
So get this, people. This is a shrine of the great conqueror Genghis Khan. And it's made by this Russian V.S. Smirnov in 1883.
Go up a little bit higher. So look at this guy's hood. Isn't that basically Aristotle or something? Like, look at the guy with the hood. Like, who's he supposed to be? Because he looks like Merlin.
He kind of does. And the Russians are here being backstabbed, which is not really the interesting part of the picture. It's really what the hermit is pointing you towards. Look at
his hand
this.
almost resting on the throne. It was just like this giant stone throne. And he's sitting there like Siddhartha.
He looks
with the moon as a serpent.
Yep.
Like
he
a
looks
cobra.
like an Egyptian space Buddha.
I mean, yeah, this is me on a good day. I'll tell you, I need that.
I like
this picture.
I need that outfit.
This is the depiction of Batu Khan stabbing a man who will not basically honor the shrine of the Khan.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And it's a cobra, and it's weird how much it looks.
That guy with the knife right there, that's Batu Khan.
It looks like the time machine sled for Orson Welles' Time Machine. This
yeah. Is this a device?
And this back disc behind the cobra head.
Yeah, it's a very interesting depiction.
Look at one eye over here. Look at one eye over here. This guy and the other guy.
Yep.
Down one too.
Down
No
low.
eyes.
Down low, the hand gesture on the left.
Justice?
I think she's peeking.
Oh.
Look, down to the bottom left, you see the M hand. There you go.
Whoa, what's this? The
Oh
M?
no. Yeah, the next to the knife, you'll see a hand gesture.
Oh right.
Oh.
In photos
You
of
also-
the
you're-
that's
West
the
side.
M.
That's West Side, I'm pretty sure.
No, that's the
That
Masonic.
right there. It is, and you can actually see that gesture today in the movies because Captain America goes back in the past to be with his lady, and that is the final scene of the movie, and she's doing that gesture with her hand on his back while they dance.
It's
I would
the
love to
exact
be
opposite
able to
of
zoom
the,
in on
of the
this.
Vulcan sign of the goddess, the Kabbalistic goddess that
Yes.
Leonard Nimoy went to. He peaked in temple while he was supposed to be in Star Trek. The Vulcans make this hand gesture, which is directly from when Leonard Nimoy was in his temple as a Jewish kid, and they said, okay, and all the men close their eyes, and then the women, they all put their hands up, and he opened his eyes, of course, and he peeked, and so he did that symbol.
Whoa.
Which is pretty weird.
It is. But yeah, this is just insane that Genghis Khan is depicted as a Moor. And this is a unique depiction. If you go into stolen history and Tartary, you will see Genghis Khan being depicted as a Chinese guy, a red-haired guy, an Aryan dude. But this is pretty much the only depiction I've ever seen of him being a Moor.
He looks like a Siddhartha.
Honestly, yeah, he looks like Dalsim.
Yeah, this is interesting to me because it ties this idea of the Eastern Jesus, the Siddhartha Buddha, that there's this Tartarian Indian side to things, which is the Krishna Tamil.
Do you know that if you translate Tanuchin's father's name, it means hero of Jesus?
Oh my gosh, really?
Yep.
Well, this might be an interesting thing because, what Siddhartha is supposed to be, I think, 500 years after Jesus, right? I mean, but it would now are very
Siddhartha
confused
Gautama,
because very confused because of the timeline. But if that pulls through, then what you have is you have this world traveler that was traveling across all of Tartary and saw it all, and maybe he's one of the last people to have a full account of seeing the whole empire. And I mean, that would be the lost years, and it would explain a lot about the connections between Krishna and Christianity, and also the Finnish to the Tamil link, because Finland having the same grammar as Tamil,
Yeah, and people can follow this link, and I'm gonna research more into Saint Andrews and the Andrews Cross. If you go into Martin Liedtke's research, you will find the Andrews Cross is in the X code, and there is a magnetic allegory being played out here. But for the more historical symbolism, I will look for the designation of red man also being a kind of Moor, because there was allusion to that was the case for Prester John, which was really a Moor. I showed that the last time. But now we're going into some confirmation on maps where we can see that indeed in America were a Moorish empire. So here, what do you read?
Dire Negro.
No. Mar Negro.
Oh, that's an M. Mar Negro.
And
so Black Sea.
And you see here that dot?
Yeah.
So there is a space between Negro and Mar.
Yeah.
But also you have
Black Sea.
Mar in Morocco, and Negro means black.
Right.
So this is the Moorish Sea. And don't get confused by sea, because as I've told you, the Moors are Saturn's chosen people, the black Hebrew Israelites, right?
Okay.
And
son of Saturn is Mars.
Kronos, in many linguistic connections, will be related to that of sea. Also because his...
Jupiter.
No. Well, yeah, also Jupiter has in Pisces, right, the sea connection. But You have the North American angle astrologically to the sea goat Capricorn,
Mm-hmm.
which is the sea goat. So this is the Saturnian Sea, the Black Sea, and it is all here in the Moorish people. And this is their empire. This is not a sea. This is a land, Mar Negro. And I think this is an earlier name for Al Morocco, or they're trying to obfuscate it. But Negro is commemorating the Moors right here in Terra Incognita.
And I really like that Florida is just all of Eastern America.
Yeah, that's
Right. Well,
Florida.
Florida was a big part of Louisiana, and so
Yeah.
Florida was the the
And they
promised land.
split it.
Some people. They thought that was the promised land that Joshua gets into after Moses perishes. They get into Florida and they found the Fountain of Youth, and there were giants there. That was part
Yeah.
of the other.
Yep.
Well, and it's really funny. The strange people you wouldn't expect to have knowledge of this just by what they do and talk about in their lives. A lot of states' rights people talk about the merging of Florida with Louisiana if it were to become 50 nation states again. And so
Right.
making all of that all the way to Texas, Florida again, they say.
Yeah.
And here we have Jesus in over America, denoting, in my mind, that the biblical story took place here.
Though I do think there's going
And
to
look
be
here, Chilaga, which is Chicago, ancient Chicago.
I think Louisiana and Florida would have a hard time merging at this point because Louisiana.
Where
is
are the Great
different.
Lakes? They're nowhere to be
Oh,
seen.
interesting. There are no
Ooh,
Great.
the Ethiopian Ocean. I like that.
Yeah. Where do you see that?
Southeast.
Ethiopia.
Ethiopicus. But the fact that they call that right above it Mar del Norte, that means that's the North Ocean. North of what? Well, where the central point is.
Be actually be the North Sea, which we have.
There we go. Sea.
Admittedly, this map is kind of brutal looking at South America and some of the lines.
Yeah,
but for them, that was far north.
High Brazil is here, I think, or is here. And Friesland would be here.
Friesland is marked.
Yeah, Friesland is here, and Iceland and Greenland is very like a land bridge to Hyperborea. And there's this island over here as well. And basically, Nova Zembla is not in existence, it seems.
Oh, Tartaria.
Yep. And yeah, there's a Tartaria here.
It blows my mind because, like, every once in a while, someone will still come in line and be like, Tartaria is made up. And I'm like, yeah, it's made up on all the maps from like 600 or 700 years. Where have you been?
Yeah.
Maybe 1,000 or more.
And also, South America is touching to the south. So, like, it could be that
which, by the way,
it could be that like the Moors came from the south and migrated up here, and it could be that the distinct Chinese people came from Hyperborea and migrated down here, and they all met and greeted each other. A catastrophe happened, and they moved across from the Americas in their 40 years in the wilderness, right after a catastrophe, and they moved over to the Caucasus Mountains and got themselves a new Jerusalem, which is here, New Jerusalem.
Now, if you start thinking about how fast you can move on boats, you'd be surprised how fast you can get. There's like a 14-year-old girl from Holland who took a boat from Holland to Africa over like 3 weeks or something like that by herself.
Yeah.
So if you start thinking about it and realizing how fast these boats were able to move, especially the kinds of boats we had.
Well, this
40 years.
This is not the
common misconception. The oceans aren't barriers; they're highways.
That's so true. It's perfect.
And yeah, here in Mar Negro again. And this is so perfect. This is the confirmation. This old map, right? Which is kind of like, I think Godgevlams would love this map if he saw it. Maybe he knows it. But here here is Asia, and here's Katai. So this is where the ocean is supposed to be. And you see Asia, Norway, and Denmark doesn't exist. So all of Scandinavia, Europe, Asia, and America is connected. And over here is the location of the terrestrial paradise. Locus paradisi terrestros. In America. It says India
Damn.
here.
Looks like
Yeah.
California.
Yeah, California is in, Locus paradis terrestros. So this is basically very much confirming everything we've been talking about. And this is Patali, which would be the southern region. It's called Patali. And it also connects up here. So crazy, man. All the topographical changes. And if you look here, the Nile was so large. And also here, very large inland rivers, it would seem like. And Etruria and Egypt isn't here. It's called Ethiopia. And we remember Tartary was just likened to have 202 letters as the Ethiopian language, right?
Right.
So they're saying that if that's true, we could imagine that they came from here, Gog and Magog, right? And also the terrestrial paradise. And they had 40 years in the wilderness, and they came down here. And that's why they have the same numbers of letters.
I've no doubt that the secrets we'll find in Eritrea, Ethiopia, just along the southeast and middle northeast of Africa, between Madagascar.
And let's also just remember what was said about Genghis Khan reigning from Budapest, right here, right? And all the way down here to the Pacific Ocean. It's just a huge amount of land.
So what we might find is that Ethiopians aren't the Tartars.
Nathan has a question.
Okay.
Where is Kilimanjaro?
Kilimanjaro is on this map. It would be
something here, like.
Is that Minamons?
Right next, right on the left side of the origin of the Nile, somewhere.
Ah, okay. So what is this mountain range that, if there's 20 names on this map, and we know that there are 10,000 names they could have put on there, why did they select that mountain range?
Well, that's why I keep saying about Ethiopia. So Eritrea to Ethiopia, up here. So
but they claim also that Southern Africa is terra incognita at this point.
Kilimanjaro is somewhere over here, underneath this inoxial, south of the Nile, right?
Yeah.
Like this is Kilimanjaro.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm saying. If you get into that area and you start seeing Eritrea, I think Eritrea is one of
my
Somalia,
question.
Kenya, and Tanzania, in the center of Tanzania, but the whole region is chunked off from Madagascar. So you could say anywhere from Somalia, Ethiopia to Mozambique or something, Zimbabwe even. That is the region that was.
Also, get this.
What do you want to ask?
Orient.
Why did they choose to name Mina Mons on this map?
Yeah, I don't know. It might be that this they don't simply know it yet, because they are still discovering this, because they came from here and they're discovering Africa right now. That's the point. Africa is terra incognita. It's not the ancient world, because they're discovering it as they are traversing from America over to Africa. That's my point.
But Nina Mons is where Namibia is now, and it's basically on the other side of Botswana. So Botswana is where Ludo, our guest before from Africa, is from.
Shout out to Ludo.
Ludo, we love you.
Yeah.
Mina is a word for mine.
Oh,
yeah, so that's where all the crazy, that's all the crazy minerals coming from Africa are coming from. So
even as far back as this, they knew that those mountains were mines.
Oh yeah.
That was the crux of my question there. Why they chose to name that in lieu of anything that they certainly would have known at the time and could have named.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That is interesting. Definitely.
This map shows quite nicely how the Sahara moved up.
Yeah.
There are paleo lakes all underneath the Sahara. And, Sahara means desert. So I have to wonder if at one point it meant lake region.
Instead of desert?
Yeah, like that's Sahara, Sahara. Kind of like when you go down a street that used to be called Cinema Drive, but there's no movie theater there anymore. It's like the Sahara is probably the old name. and they still call desert Sahara, but like it used to be, that's where the best connection, like the highways, as you put it, rivers, like the Nile connected 3 or 4 different rivers to 3 or 4 giant lakes, larger than the lakes that are right now. They're still there, but they're under the sand, and they're larger than the lakes and aquifers of the Minnesota and Michigan Great Lakes region.
Also, get that this apparently this was made by someone called Philip the Black.
Oh, well, there you go.
Oh,
Yeah.
This keeps coming up. This seems so important. Like that there are back the Dogon people, those doggone people, you know?
Yeah.
It's like it's kind of like they might have had Tartar teeth. Maybe they had Tartar on their teeth or something, but they didn't like
They
them.
had yellow teeth, and who do we mark with yellow teeth today? The English people.
What in tarnation's going on with these doggone
And all
people?
these Tartar stars.
Yeah.
Oh my god. It's getting too weird.
I mean, but it's weird. You start thinking about these are words we use. So if you're not allowed to say, you know, you're not supposed to say anything.
But look how cool the Tartarians were, right? So these are the Chinese wealthy people, and here outside are the Tartarian primitive people. Well, they have land ships, and lots of them. Oh, sorry. And they're pretty cool. They look very big, and being able to carry a lot of people, and if they're really using these to this extent, there must have been flat steps, and land ships would have been like very
sand, wind
and
ships.
also and wind ships. Yeah, wind ship. Yeah,
yeah, they would
whatever.
sail the sand.
Yeah, like we do, you use them today in the desert. So imagine how quickly they could actually go in these. Pretty cool, I'd say. It's like if they choose these.
You have a sand skiff, and this is like old Mad Max territory.
Yeah, and you know the horse is actually said to originate in Tartary. So if they choose these over horses, they must be pretty good, I guess. This is the wall here, with the Tartarian gates to the northern side. And another thing that's quite funny, like, is that they didn't dam up these rivers. They let them, you know, flow. I don't know if they could. Maybe they weren't able to. But it just feels like if you really wanted to hit your opponent, why let the river flow into it? I don't know.
It's crazy how much you see of that in America. By changing the waterways, they have intentionally buried every single thing that may be of import to us now.
Yeah, and also let's see here all the Tartar cities here. Great concentration. Right by the wall. Very interesting. And their tents here are large, like looking castles, and some like they have antiquity on their tents. It's very interesting I think this is it's like Mad Max, as you said. It's post catastrophe, and they're still having, you know, great advantage in all sorts of things and being quite ingenious, I'd say.
Well, all tied to the cyclic disaster.
Yeah.
And every time the empire consolidates its people, and these people forget to feed themselves, then when food becomes an issue, the empire crumbles overnight.
Yeah, it does. It's that's
every single every single cycle can be matched year to year with the death of a specific dynasty.
Mm-hmm. I would really want to see perhaps if Flamenco has something to say about some of these Tartarian dynasties. I haven't gone into Flamenco, but look at this: Maure, Meyer. So Maure, Moor, and Pan for the Saturnian, the man goat of Aquarius and Capricorn in union. And yeah, Saturn and Moors, I would say this alludes to. But yeah, okay. So this we're concluding the Moorish chapter. I don't know if we want to have some few other things on it. we're not we're concluding the chapter for today, but this is going into church tech. So so this is a new thing. We're just changing lanes here. This is a book about a French Masonic book about churches. What is very interesting is the use of pillars to do all sorts of angles and transporting air pneumatically or water, it would seem. And look at this angle here, and this is a pillar. And what I feel like that some of these pillars could have been taken down from the churches and been repurposed as cannons. As John Levi has alluded to, that cannons may not have been always cannons. And where could they have come from? They could have come from hydraulic pipage inside churches. And you can see
storm drains and gutters.
Yeah.
Nowadays they're ugly, but nothing without function.
Nothing without.
There's no part of any of this old architecture that did not have a purpose.
Exactly. It's the first law of industrial construction, right?
Ayn Rand right there.
Look at this.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Really?
Yeah, I think there's something being transported inside here.
This is so cool. This looks like an electrical thing, either that or some sort of,
And look what's going on here.
Oh my gosh.
I think this has all been taken down.
Yeah. The funny thing is, this kind of stuff might have been the first to be disassembled because it was so easy to assemble.
Look,
you start
2 clocks.
Wow, there could be 2 different times. Were they 2 different times?
No, I think it also some of them could be meters for the atmospheric pressure.
Huh. That is in Metropolis, right?
Yep. Masonry. So I think there's and look here, Moorish style, and all these pillars here on the outside. And I have confirmation that some of these outside pillars, in them were meteorological instruments like barometers to get weather readings. And look at this. Is this iron? What is this doing? Is this like is this what is it? Providing shade? What exactly is this doing?
Looks like a glass walkway.
Yeah, they could be cleaning.
They could be
cleaning the windows. They could be standing on it, but it seems like a grate. That's kind of everything about this seems very ultra modern. This is the kind of thing we're just now starting to see more and more commonly being done. And these are the kind of supports on flying buttresses that they probably were. They had to rebuild some of these churches when they removed some of these flying buttresses.
I want people to think about when they go into a cathedral and they see all these knobs coming down from the rooftops.
Right.
What they could have been once.
Right. I mean, I keep going into churches and seeing heads removed and heads replaced now. They'll put a new head on a statue. And it's a European-looking face. It's usually not as good as the statue originally came from 1,000 years ago.
Look at this. You see the middle part here?
Wow.
It has an inlet for ventilation, I would guess. Also here. So these are more mysterious than we can ever imagined before, I would say. And all the church tech that has been taken down inside of them, as Martin Liedtke has talked about incessantly and shown us so much about. This is
saw the video we put up live a few days ago after Martin Liedtke's thing on the stripping. we saw the inside of the church, one of the castles we went to. It's a dome with grass growing through the roof of it, and it looked like this after it had been completely ripped apart. Everything had been taken out of it, so stones were left. It's just sitting there in the middle of nowhere in Spain, in the mountains.
I just feel like this is something we should be looking more for in the architecture books.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Look at
Go back one photo. Top left, there is a parapet on the corner.
Mm-hmm.
You see that? And that gutter or cannon or tube. What if that's a bathroom?
That'd be so cool if it was a bathroom. I'd have a bathroom with a view,
Whoa. Wow.
Yeah, it gets good wind, and the gutter leads straight to below.
Wow. Good idea, Nathan.
There's your poop.
If you've seen Don Williams' in Thief and the Cobbler, they literally have the cobbler enter the kingdom by going through he goes into the kingdom of Tartary through the plumbing up through the corner of a building, just through like that.
And you know that Benjamin Banneker is said to the Moor who designed Washington D.C. He's said to be the father of plumbing. Could plumbing originally have been this technology inside the churches?
What's interesting about the law of equivalency is that plumbing and power are the same. The amount of power you need in a pipe, the amount of water you need in a pipe, the amount of pressure you can have in a pipe, and the amount of energy are equivalents.
Look at these stone blocks also.
Sorry, Nathan, you about to...
Well, the greatest luxury that we take for granted nowadays is hot water and sewage systems. If you take those away, you would lose a great deal of any population. The people don't know how to clean up their own shit.
It's true.
That's why men are supposed to stand on the street side of the street often, is because they used to throw
when you
poop bags down.
said that, Nathan, I could also think that there could be a toilet here, right?
Exactly. And now you always see these old photos of or these old movies where you're walking down a shitty street and somebody throws their chamber pot out. What if that's in a time of war and they had to take all the sewage pipes for cannons?
Right. Oh. Because they melted down everyone's metal.
And they're like, damn, well, now I ain't got no toilet gutter. I guess I'll just throw my shit out.
Oh my gosh, Nathan, you just
you're
uncovered.
genius.
That's so genius. Think about what they did in World War II, where they had all of the old Americans take whatever pots and pans of scrap metal and melt it down, and they didn't even really use it, but they said it would make good morale. They had women collecting bacon grease. They said you could put that bacon grease into bombs. And it was just a morale booster for the most part, to make them feel like they were participating in the war effort. But maybe there's something to it. Maybe they wanted to get rid of all the old stuff. So they're like, let's melt down all the metal.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but knowing what ensues when you don't have clean water and sanitation as brought to you by plumbing and sewage infrastructure, that's population control. If you were to do that on purpose, if I wanted to wipe out most of a people's, I'd just take away the clean water.
I hate to say that was funny, but it's true what you're saying. I mean, if you think about the story of Genghis Khan and Rome, he actually got into Rome and had to make a deal instead of taking it over, which is the weirdest story, I think, in history of all of them. But like, he gets in there and he doesn't just destroy the city. But what they did do was the barbar Tartars that were working with him smashed the aqueducts. And so all the huge flat fountains and plumbing stopped working when the water stopped rushing into the city from miles away. So aqueducts destroyed. There was no more water. It was just mud. And people were just living in their own feces, and they were drinking their own urine, and they died, very quickly.
That's the first thing to go wrong in any siege. And it's a thing nobody talks about. And while I will say that I think a lot of this is plumbing, Victor, go back one photo. That right there, the ball and socket joint at the very bottom. Yeah. There's no outlet for that, which means no, that's not a poo pipe.
Yeah. So what is it?
Maybe electrical.
To be honest, it could be simply support, but like a new way of doing support. This specific
that would be
diagram.
A free ball joint, like the shoulder would have a joint in it, so you can imagine that.
Yes,
different angles. They weren't able to have
that ball and socket allows for movement.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Very ornate.
So why would you need these support joists to move? Because if something shifts,
let's just think about that.
Oh yeah, if there's earthquakes or any kind of thing, then they have to be able to flex and they bend, and those things will help the stones hold in place, but they'll move a little bit and vibrate.
Shit.
Absorb some of the attention.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So at least in that specific diagram, you're looking at the origins of skyscraper technology.
I mean, skyscrapers seem more and more so weird. You see these 1800s, 13 stories is really common. These 13-story buildings in the 1800s here.
I would
in the middle of
think
the desert.
this, I would say, is a ventilation, because I have a book about ventilation, and these are for ventilation.
And that's the thing that I was going to say is the weirdest part about 13-story buildings is the heat rises to the top. So even if you have a basement, like we've been looking in mud flood buildings that have basements for troglodyte dwellings, or whatever it was originally, like the best spot would have been the basement. But the top story had wind chill, but there's so much heat rising, so you have these things to cause airflow to push the air up out and let the heat rise out.
Also, look at what's happening inside the church here.
Gosh, so many people.
It looks like an Athenian convention, like politics, right?
What
Looks
kind- how
like
big-
politics.
Yeah, like a forum.
Well, and the
like a-
second amphitheater row right there is supported by those ball and socket joists.
Mhm.
And then you have ventilation knobs up here.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
Otherwise, smoke death.
And this I showed with Black Sheep Researcher. I'm not gonna go into that anymore. But look at the next. Look at the next live with Black Sheep Researcher.
Okay. Tomorrow's going to be amazing. 'cause we have
I'm
some
gonna
cool
show
stuff.
you this again.
This thing that he just looked at, also connected to what you just said, Nathan, about most places the first thing to go is water. So the video tomorrow is all about the castle in Almeria that is water. It was sieged for 4 or 5 years before they finally gave up on the siege, because they had caverns underneath and water supply and plumbing, and water still flows there to this day because the system is so sophisticated.
But look again here by it. There's something going up here in the roof, and I think this is perhaps for gas lamps. But still, the inlets up here were, I think, they were built to be these inlets when they were constructed. That is what or it's very crazy that they would be able to uniquely fit these in a random design, I would say. But I think these were constructed for this purpose originally, and they're making use of it right here. Gas lamps or something else, and it's technology. And also, look at this fireplace. What is this? Look at this, Andres.
Oh yeah,
The
another one
screen.
of these. Okay, so what do you guys really think? I mean, I've seen these in real life. I've been all over the planet. I kept finding them. I went with Ethan, and we went to the Scottish Rite Temple, and they showed us, like, this is the one from Abraham Lincoln's fireplace, and they all look like pieces of tech to me. I'm sorry, they look like they go on and these are the things that go on the front of a Model T Ford. That's what I get. This is like connected to the radiator.
They are called
technology.
andirons.
Yeah.
And they are always come in pairs, and I would think that the reason for pairing is an anode and a cathode, and there's something electrical going on. But I'm not sure. There's more fire. These are the andirons. Look at how large this one is. It's in Tartaria. So red brick, Tartaria, and great andirons here. And here they are on the outside of the fireplace, with the griffins up here, or the winged sphinxes of some sort. And look at these. They have that wiring we also see on top of, like, the Moscow churches. That weird co-wiring that goes along with them. And I think, again, this is alluding to electrical. And look at this pole in the middle. And how would you burn something in here? It's just very weird. And this is in an exposition of London. And it's made of bronze. Just putting that out there. And look at this one. Also with a very unique design, which I would say this is technology. And this is in marble. This is the meter that is, I think, measuring something. These are called modillions and volute. And there's something called volute pumps in the industry today. They have the same shape.
Yeah.
Yeah. And look at this. This was I got this from Brittany.
Yeah.
From one of her books. This is one of it's one of
Colin Babylon books. She's got all kinds of great stuff.
It's a Vanderbilt fireplace, and it has an
organ built into the fireplace. Think about what this really means about. I mean, I've been looking into biblical stuff, trying to figure out what harmonics and music and organs have to do with these buildings, because steam and sound and phonemes and frequencies, they seem to all play a huge part into the patterns that you're seeing on the roof.
And this is a closed off ventilation shaft, I would think.
So
yeah, still
there's
maybe working.
There's
still.
something, at very least somebody thought this had some occult or mystical qualities to it. But what's crazy, if you remember the Phil Lawler doc, we talk a little bit about the episode where they go through and they use an organ and they find Lemaire's psychic, connection using an organ. And so there's something about organs I'm still trying to figure out. Like, I think that they really did have the practical use of music, but there's much more to it.
Oh yeah, this is about the OD force.
It might have to do with like the harmonic resonance and weather.
Crystals. I cannot remember. Voltaic and frictional electricity, electrical atmosphere. And this is a very interesting book I got from Brittany as well. I'm gonna read it at some point. But now I'm going into illumination, and I think you see these are the aigrets, the illuminations as we see, and this is electrostatic. So this is the confirmation that there's electricity going on in these illumination events,
and it's cool looking,
and it's electrostatic. And you see these wiring; they go around the columns, and electrostatic. This is the confirmation.
So electrostatic. We've been talking about electrostatic.
Electrostatic.
Electrostatic tethering could be a much bigger part of how some of this stuff was being held together than we even never realized. If that's related to the organs, then we might have cracked some major code in terms of looking into
how this works.
Coral castle, lifting stones, harmonic resonance. It's pretty exciting.
But this is all electrostatic.
To excite,
I would say.
Friction.
Friction, man. Who doesn't love a little friction?
This is electrostatics.
Look at all the people.
And remember these
weird trees.
Flower-like
Those are Tesla
lamps.
palm coils. Palm coils. I don't know what you called them back then.
It's very weird. And here you have them up here.
I'm really excited that we've been seeing more and more of the real ones of these in Spain. I keep finding in really random places these copper bronze towers like this, and they can't tear it down because a stork landed on it, and the rules are storks are good luck, so they leave it up there.
Okay, so also note this is an iron arch, and these can, if you put bulbs on these, they will light up, as I will show you right this second. Yeah, they're conductive. And here it has an iron arch as well, and as you can see here, there's a similar arch here on this bridge in the pond in X. Very interesting photograph here. Very interesting bridge. And here you have the same thing, iron and the bulbs. And this was made for illumination in, was it Messina? No, Reggio in Italy.
So you're seeing more and more light bulbs. We were just in Cordoba, which is a Muslim city that had light bulbs in the 11th century. And this is probably how they got it to work.
So and yeah, it's the same thing that we're seeing here. There was so much illumination technology going on, and look at this. This is said to be illumination of the theater, but it looks like floodlighting because what's happening here, and it's in the 1850s, and they have floodlighting, it would seem.
So, I mean, this all predates the Tesla stuff. I still believe that Tesla's a very important figure, but I think he's rediscovering Tartarian tech that was very common at the time. He's disclosing it.
These are the bulbs. It's the same thing of the iron gates we just saw, an iron strip, and I think it's iron at least, some kind of metal, and then they have the bulbs. They just stick them right on, and they light up.
Once you start studying vacuum tubes and the different kinds of minerals that they use to make nitrous oxide or lithium or different vapors, like for neon, for instance, to put into these bulbs, it starts to make more and more sense how this worked. Because again, like I was in Cordoba, and you'll have all these cities, and there's always bells associated with these cities. And all these
giant bells. Look at the bell here is intact.
This
is the giant bell of Moscow, and it doesn't have that damage on it.
So they're always next to a river too. And then they have these water mills, and the water mills have these little bells that are picking up the water, and they're leaving the sediment behind, and they're lifting, because the river's flowing, the water 100 meters up in the air. and it drops down, and the water goes through these Archimedeal spirals, and the Archimedean spirals will alternate the current of the water, right? And then it hits another propeller, and then that's where the energy is being used to produce for these, conductive friction, the electrostatic energy, which then light bulbs are lit from. And this is all happening in the 11th or the 7th, who knows exactly, but this is all what Arabic Spaniards are aware of, is that there was electricity and light bulbs. It's very common knowledge.
And look how they put the light bulbs right by the vegetation, because it's electrostatic.
And it helps the vegetation probably grow. I mean, it's just crazy when you start thinking about the permafrost that was happening after the Campi Flegrei.
And they like to tell us that these are temporary lighting events. But look at this. This is the obelisk in the Place de la Concorde in Paris. And the official narrative about this is that this was only a very temporary installation that could light up this area. And you see here are the light bulbs. And here are some sort of illumination device. I think it may be the generator. But okay, so get this. This is taken in the 1860s, a photograph, right? And this was erected in 1836. So it stood there for 30 years.
Until someone stole all the birds.
As a temporary installation, it stood there for 30 years. That's a contradiction. And
theoretically, that's temporary.
And here, it doesn't have the obelisk.
But it does look at the stars. Go in a little bit closer to the windows. Look at the Stars of Solomon. Go down a little bit. So the Stars of Solomon are in the windows above the pillars, right between the 4 different pharaohs, which are represented by totem poles. And totem poles we're finding to be in China and in America, right? Because the Western Pacific Northwest, like Seattle and Washington, where Nathan's
It's called a Mexican symbol.
We're seeing totem poles.
It's called a Mexican symbol, yet it's very Egyptian.
Now look at the symbols on either side of that giant star. Don't they look to you kind of like the measuring symbol from East Germany? Like these are
also the black sun of the black sun cross of the Jesuits, and you have an eagle here.
I think this is what we call uncanny.
Very uncanny.
Those are the words.
Look at this tower also.
Oh, look at the power lines. Are you kidding me? It's almost as if those are like straight wires. Is that a misinterpretation?
Look at all the flags. Why have all these flags?
Well,
going on?
I wonder about that too. Flags at the top of these poles everywhere. There's flag poles. So poles connected to this little energy system.
And if the cloth of the flag could generate electrostatics, then it's again a confirmation.
Silk flags.
But just remember, guys, it stood there for 30 years, and they claim it was very temporary. And this is my proof, because this is from the 1860s, and the obelisk was erected in the 30s. And here again, illumination, and it's somehow being generated from these, or the obelisk.
It probably burned down in a fire.
Yeah, stones. I love it when stones burn down in a fire. That's like one of my favorite things to happen. It's so rare.
Yeah,
I like it.
And here you have in a later exposition the same thing going. So this is a confirmation for me that this is a device, because look at this. And then here in the expo, you have this electrical machine.
What's most likely to me is someone took the obelisk, they disassembled it, and they brought it to Italy. Or somewhere, because that's what seems to happen is all over Spain, Portugal, and Italy, there are obelisks from Africa or from
They did. I have the book on that.
But once you start thinking about the idea of obelisk, and you start thinking about totem poles, and you understand how totem poles are the Tartarian symbol, then it starts to make a lot more sense, because you have all of these accounts of what totem poles are for, from like the Washoe or the Haida tribes of the Pacific Northwest. That's where a lot of this information is coming out. I mean, gosh, China is even having museums do exhibits on Washoe and Haida now, just to show that their connection, because they want to prove that they got to America first, because they think culturally that'll be very useful in taking Canada and California and Washington. But I mean, when you start to realize whom they really were Tartarian, then it changes their whole story.
This is the same place, same from 2 different angles. This is from one angle. This is from looking the other way. So this here is basically a symmetrical thing, place in Germany in Bade, and you can see all the illumination that was going on here. And I think this was not temporary. This was in in the structure like indefinitely. Like, and this was
Yeah.
this what it looks like at evening. Light it up.
Look at the way the strip of light, it glows the entire ring around the building.
Yeah, exactly. It's beautiful.
Well, guys, that's it for me. I'm out of time. But do continue.
Yeah. Okay.
I
Because
love
this
you
is
guys here. Everybody
I'm
else,
gonna have
Mike.
you come back really soon.
Catch you later, bro.
We gotta do something with Jay really
we
soon.
love you, bro.
Yes. So today was supposed to be for having Jay in. I want Jay to
Yeah.
tell me some more stories.
Yeah, when
I have a
Jay's got-
couple
Some
ideas.
more?
his schedule conflicts, so we're gonna have to move our schedule to fit the hour he does. But I think it'll be very worth it.
Exactly. Yeah, it'll be a nighttime session here in America. So yeah.
But it'll be worth it. So
All
we're all
right,
looking
guys.
forward. Take care, man. God bless.
Take care, Nathan. Gonna miss you.
Follow your dreams and be well.
I want to again show here the amount of electrostatics that were used. This is in Paris, and look at this. It has huge projections, and all these buildings are lit up. In the background, the whole place is lit up, and here, large projections of electricity. And this church is lit up, this church is lit up, and this church is lit up. And also here. And so it's not only locally in one place in Paris, the whole city is lit up.
This image is from?
Let me remember. This is from Le Monde Illustre, that can be found in the newspaper section on Gallica.
Where is this still? Paris?
This is Paris. Look at that. Electrostatics.
Wow.
Yeah.
That river, though.
And we've seen this before.
Starting to realize how rivers equal electricity. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, you can directly translate current and the flow into Ohm's law.
Ohm's law.
Yeah.
Totally. The law of equivalency with wind, electricity, and energy. I mean, well, and water. Are all similar.
Look at this,
They're all
guys.
equivalent.
This is electrostatics inside illumination of the Thunder Palace in the Paris Expo.
You ask any builder. I mean, like the pipes and the wires have to be proportional to the amount of flow in them,
And
no matter what
these
material.
are Fresnel lenses mounted on steam machines, and they are showing them off Fresnel lenses for illumination by steam. So I would think this is steam-powered electricity.
Makes plenty of sense when you think about hydrothermal vents. I mean, there's always a volcano next to the river. In almost every one of these circumstances, they've got some building made of stone on top of a mountain. Hey, look, mini Eiffel Towers, methinks.
Yeah, it looks weird.
So what's the point of the Eiffel Tower? Was it, because that you're not allowed to use it for, you can take pictures of the Eiffel Tower, but you're not allowed to sell technically illuminated pictures of the Eiffel Tower because the government owns the rights to pictures of it once it's turned on, once it's lit up.
You said something, Mike?
There was a locomotive in front of that sort of Eiffel Tower-like thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's incredible, Mike. Oh my gosh, good eye. So all these general-looking guys standing there so solemnly next to an energy-powered train, electric energy-powered train, maybe a steam-powered train,
and the Fresnel lenses. Yeah. And here, electrostatic illumination in Russia, in Moscow. Les roues Tversky illumini. So I feel this is ample evidence of electrified world before AC and DC. And it was very common, it would seem. And it was not something temporary. It was not only for the elite. And I would love to have witnessed some of this. This is Venice. Oh, and this was Sweden. This is Sweden, and look at this mosque.
The mosque in Sweden.
Yeah, and
Do you
here in
remember
Venice,
the mosque in Sweden.
Yeah, I know some mosques in Sweden right now. Well, they have they do have a current Muslim Swedish thing going. Look at this hat here, and all the weird costumes and weird things going on. This looks like an old Roman thing, Phoenician thing maybe. It's just very interesting. Some of these people are very tall, I think, also, and these lamps are electrostatically lit up somehow. And also Venice, look at this, just lighting show with electrostatic, and the whole building here has bulbs and bulbs up here and more electrostatics. It's very common, guys. And this is a a lighting wagon, a Beleuchtungswagen in Germany somewhere, so they could like get lighting up here. Pretty cool. And this is this is the obelisk. So you remember the Place of the Concorde, right?
Yes.
Now we're gonna bust them totally, right? So this is the obelisk that they somehow built this Mexican temple around. And here it is by itself, right? Before the Mexican temple, which they say is very temporary. So let's go back to the Mexican temple, because we just saw the obelisk standing alone. Here, the Mexican temple is standing without the obelisk. So, which was first, guys? Can you make your mind up? I think this was always there.
Chicken or the egg? I don't know.
This was always there. I think this is a photograph, and this was taken in the 60s, and it was erected in the 30s. So it says that this has stood there for 30 years. But yeah, I'll go back to the lone. Yeah, here it is again. Yeah, it looks different. Maybe they took this down and built a new one. I don't know, but it's just weird. But again, Paris totally lit up, and these are figuring into it. And here is electrical fountain in Champs-Élysées. This is electrostatics. They call those decorations, but they're really electrostatics. Decorating, of course, the city. And also the military were able to have parachute lighting.
Of course.
I guess this was an aerostat perhaps somewhere, so it would stay there and keep.
If you don't have drones, go home. Like that's how you run it.
And here more of the swan lamp. I think this was the Mr. Swan's design of. I can't remember.
Tartarian drones.
Nothing's new.
But it's pretty interesting.
When you start seeing the Japanese using Tartarian drones,
look at this.
Projections. This is something that blows my mind. Is that literally just a light, or is there like a point to this? And
I don't know, man.
I see more in this. Not just that lady's derriere, which is impressive, but like the amount of technology that's involved with this. The observation of this.
So I think this would be. I think this is a meteorological device.
It's a soiree, where they're at an evening party talking about observation technology. So they're looking at the different kinds of technology.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah. But it's this device was very interesting. I think this is a meteorological device, but it could also be something else. I don't know. This is Austria-Hungary, and look at this. The whole city up here lit up. The entire bridge and all the boats, and some of them could be just regular old lanterns, but I'm guessing a lot of it is electrostatics also up here, and the entire palace lit up. I
mean, just think about the amount of fuel it would cost and how intense it would be to run lanterns that were not electrostatic across the cities. So this
is what I call the serpentine comet. The comet that couldn't decide whether it was orbiting or the one way or the other way.
Couldn't coming or going.
Yeah. This is the I don't like the rotation of the Earth comet.
Yeah. The indifferent comet.
The indifferent serpentine comet. Yeah.
I'm going left. I'm going right. I'm a horse.
What they call these now are fireball meteorites. But fireball meteorites might be from volcanoes.
Yeah,
Why
I
don't,
know.
is Brittany,
Comets.
Brittany's here. Why don't you say something
No,
about
no.
volcanoes really quickly?
Yeah, that's possibly true.
What do you think more and more about meteorites being?
Volcanic activity. I
Yeah,
think,
how's that work?
I definitely think less and less about it now, but I was thinking that a lot of them were connected. If you look at the eruption history around everywhere and check out the volcanic activity websites, you'll see connections to eruptions and meteorite or fireball sightings. And then the composition of a meteorite is such that it's the same as volcanic matter from eruptions, ejections, etc. So
I mean, it's crazy because a lot of people have been trying to talk about like maybe volcanoes or something other than what they are, which I'm totally comfortable with. But I think you found the most reasonable explanation for some of the phenomena that we're finding because, I've been to a lot of places which are next to former volcanoes, whatever you want to call them. But there's something that's happening where, I like the story of, like cold-blooded giants that live underground and they're actually, breathing on their tummies. And then that's actually part of the, there's whatever you want. The point is there is some rock being discharged from these thermal vents.
yes,
And it's much more noticeable and observable than anything that we're seeing falling.
and some stay up for a long time. So the narrative is like 2 to 3 years. Certain projections, ejections, eruptions, whatever you want to call it, stay up in our atmosphere. So, and the mesosphere, even like the lower layer in between. So
electrostatic projections of volcanoes could actually be part of what we're looking at when we see these spiraling fireball meteorites, which are phenomena, and they're barely explained by the TV guide, science
stars
special.
and planets.
Yeah.
Down to bigger eruptions.
That's
history.
wait. Go into that. So you think it's possible that the stars and planets might be electrostatically held discharges?
Yeah, I do. In different layers. That's, I think, a theory. That might be
My God, that's fascinating.
part of like NORB even. I don't know. They have different theories, but for me, that's what I thought what would happen. It just makes sense because you have the atmosphere that has an area. I don't need to sit down. I have to vacate.
No.
But you have I'm talking.
You sure?
Have a good time.
Yeah,
All right.
all this.
Oh, I don't
We'll see
know
you
if
in
it's
a bit,
fair to
Brittany.
say that I know all of this. It's the research you put into volcanoes is pretty insane. Like this idea that the stars, so you think the stars could actually be volcanic activity?
I think they could be the fixed stars, and then your stars that move are driven. I think it's connected to the megaliths. I think it's connected to what Naya's going to talk about next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, then
Yeah. We'll
I'll
hear about
I'll
it.
give you patience. Then.
I will
My
end-
God, if that's not the most interesting stuff about volcanoes that I've heard in the last.
I will
few months.
end on this, okay? About ventilation. And here we see again as the church tech video, the knobs on the roofs of churches. These are ventilation inlets, and they basically take in air and they supply the air for. They take out the bad air that comes from gas lights inside the cathedral, and take it outside into the ventilation shaft, and they could also use that gas further on to resupply a burner. So as you see, entering the cooling vitiated air tube here, and then you have vitiated air coming down here, and escaping afterwards at B to indicate the fresh air entering to supply the burner. So very smart.
And it's insane. This is all from this book from, I guess, 18 something.
Early 1800s,
The
yeah.
habitation of the rich and the poor. So seeing the different kinds of habitations, but the rich ones.
And here you can see a church, and you have an athanor, and they're basically putting it directly into the ventilation shaft.
Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden, those spots are starting to make more sense for actually being the center for these alchemical machines that fit in the center of
churches,
cathedrals. Right.
And look how large these
Four-sided
guys would have been compared to like a large chapel or cathedral.
Giants and midgets working together.
Yep. And look at this giant bell or whatever it is.
What's funny though
and
is
here, look,
we know
look.
Scandinavians and Gaelics worked alongside. So you had giants and midgets. They were literally double the size of each other.
Look at the positioning of all these things right under these knobs.
So these knobs are clearly important for some sort of.
They're taking in the burning of whatever this is doing. If it's gaslighting or whatever, They're taking in the air directly above it.
And a lot of the time we're looking at this stuff the same way they were. I mean, the second people that found this stuff, because a lot of people looked at this dead works technology and didn't know what to do with it. And they're like, well, it's magical. It's God's thing. So we should venerate the actual mechanics, but it's like a train that became a kid's playground. You don't know what to do with it.
This is all installation. And this is in Tartaria, Persia, or Manchuria.
And look at their hats. Manchurian hats, Tartarian faces. It's crazy. Look at these beards. Do you see that many beards, like that style beard on regular Han people? Very seldomly. These are more Caucasian or Arabic beards. These are Moorish people with Manchurian robes.
Yep. And here you can see what they won't tell you today are ventilation shafts, and this could be part of the electrostatic gathering.
Wait, is that 7-pointed star? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-pointed stars? Oh, no way. That's septagram right there. 1, 2, 3.
I think it's an octo.
1, 2, 3. I don't know.
Go
to the
other.
Go to the other star. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I see 7. I don't see that as an 8. Maybe that's 8.
It is 8.
Okay.
It is
8-pointed star.
It is 8.
Which is a good number in the octave.
Yeah.
However, septagrams are pretty interesting. So
this is the Cathedral of Albi. I think this is in Spain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
I've actually been to that castle, and I have footage of it.
Oh.
So I can, now that you pointed out.
I think this is all old ventilation technology, and they may seal it off very easily. Those tubes, right? Just pour in some cement, and voila.
Right. That's a big thing here, is fixing things.
Another statue, and nobody will notice.
Yeah, it's a shame, really, because you see a lot of them saying, "Oh, we're repairing it," and you're like, "Stop it! Stop repairing! Don't do that!
Don't do that!"
It's like a cross-eyed like person using their bad hand backwards to like draw over the Michelangelo's art or something.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people will look at church roofs a different way now. And very interesting to study what these gas ventilation tubes also that could resupply gas burning up here.
Because they look at the tops of towers, but they emulate also the idea of a cave. If you notice, I've been to several church caves, and in the caves they have these stalagmite and stalactites raining down.
Oh yeah.
So they look a lot like there's some sort of carved stalagmite, and it's a repeating pattern. Also, I wanted to show, if you zoom in, I have a hard time with doing that. Zoom into these little
cherubims.
These little cherubs, because the cherubs are these creepy sun gods that vomit everywhere.
Oh yeah, you should see Martin's latest upload.
Oh yeah,
where he goes through a Spanish cathedral that has all these arts with the cherubims like fighting each other and looting and drinking and stuff like that. And it's actually a book I sent him.
Very good.
So I have it as well. These are les ventilateurs. So there's this modern ventilation technology above a theater or something, I think. So you can see the sun. It's really weird. Let me not say weird. Maybe I'm just a noob, but I just feel like this is highly technological. Like, and I cannot really fathom the totality of it, I think, right now. This is old days, and they have ventilation knobs here. This is somewhere in Europe, I would think. And
unless
here,
it's Manchuria now, which
this seems like could there be water or a large ventilation tube going up here, like a chimney?
I mean, the amount of effort they put into making that structure integral, even if it's hollow, I think it means like it's very possible.
Yeah. And look how they also have them on the side here of the rooms, because maybe something was to be burning very close to the...
Yeah, just go back to what Nathan said, right? Nothing was without function.
Nothing was without function.
Right.
Exactly. Function and form. So, very interesting. Look at this.
I've been thinking, I mean, maybe a tangent, but I want to say it anyway, is that New York, all the numbered streets are Kabbalistic numerical numbers that actually have meaning. That's why they picked the numbers the way they did.
Oh, you see here, it is mounted right beneath this.
So what do you really think about the arabesques and these, these sacred geometrical patterns like the Muslims seem to monopolize in their culture? What is it that they adopted, and why is Tartaria so geometrically sacred geometrical. Why do we have these septagrams, hexagrams, all these crazy star patterns?
Yeah, it's a good question. A lot of people would say resonance, harmonic geometry, and stuff like that. But I don't. Yeah, I just feel like that is the base of it, and there's so much more to be said.
It's true. Most of it's mostly just like observance, less than hypothesis for us. But like, you know, you'd be surprised how little hypothesis we're trying to do just by observing, because you want to try to keep a level head. But it's still hard to ignore. There's so much information here, so much data. It's hard not to link it together and say these people were seeing these harmonic patterns in crystals, in harmonic resonance. When they're using these organs, they're finding these patterns, and those are the patterns that are holding together. And so they're using those patterns again.
Yeah. And I wonder how big this dog is.
Oh man, is that like one of those?
And how big these are?
Ibiza hound? It's like an Ibiza hound, even. It's crazy.
I can imagine a regular human being up here. But yeah, more ventilation, I would say, and other stuff going on. Very artistic, and I think some of these gas burners.
Zoom into Strasbourg, yeah.
Yeah, I think this
Strasbourg, right?
is some of the gas burning technology going on here. And this is the church going crazy with all the piping and all the church tech we have seen inside of it, and it would be able to produce this effect. I don't know if we think that Starfort's okay. So Strasbourg is inside a massive Starfort,
Right.
and
Black Forest.
if Starforts are gas mining, they're mining the gas to supply this cathedral. That's what my conclusion would be. And there could also be electrostatics involved, but this seems like gas.
It makes sense, right? The cathedrals are usually in the center of the Starfort.
Yep.
Well, it's also the solar clock.
Let's just
There's a solar clock right in the center of Strasbourg, and it was burned down, but that's supposedly the building.
So this is Strasbourg.
I mean, it's pretty much the coolest city. And there was a dancing plague, which is the weirdest thing. That people dance themselves to death. And they link it with like ergot, which is what's in LSD. They link that as the first LSD mania in the 1513, 1518, something like that. Strasbourg erupted into song and dance, and the priests freaked out, and they left the town. And when they got back, because they were trying to get messages for the Vatican so they could go look into what the heck was going on, they showed up and found all of these delirious people dancing, holding hands until the people died. And there were people holding hands and dying on top of each other, and the whole city was dancing to death. It was a mass hysteria. And so what they did was they burned it down to the ground in 1513 or 15, something like that, which is right before or right around Gutenberg. So that's the other thing, is that there's the beginnings of people communicating with each other with mass written messages. So the mass hysteria was widespread received. And they're like, oh my God, be careful what happens. You know, you don't want to get the Strasbourg dancing plague. And dancing with the Reaper, you know, everyone's talking about Grim Reapers, like dancing in the hills with the devil, or dancing with death.
Yeah.
You know, that comes from Strasbourg.
Whoa, that's interesting.
Strasbourg is a weird place even today. I mean, you know, it's like the Rothschilds have mansions there. It's like the Black Forest that connects France to Germany.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest place I've been. I mean, well, it's a weird place.
I think I will end on the Roman Starforts. That blows the Starfort narrative right open. And here they're called hydraulic machines, applied to draw off the water.
No way.
In Lake Fusino, in 52 AD. Mike, do you remember the day when Einar Johansson found this for us?
Yep.
You hear this, Mike? We're going by star hydraulic machines now. That's how we're
No,
gonna
both gas mining and hydraulic machines.
So we've got gas mining, hydraulic machines, and an advanced communication network.
Yeah. Look at this Roman Starfort that is BC. Allegedly. But still, it blows the narrative right open. They're talking about these structures being built before the time of Christ. And Wikipedia will tell you that they are from Da Vinci.
Yeah, 300 years old. No, they're not. They're clearly not. They're thousands of years old. It's obvious. Get over it.
Yeah. Please.
Please, let's keep moving on, because season 2 is so near.
Yeah. This is Arcades of Ostia. We know Ostia, that great harbor fort city. This is the book. Encyclopedia of Civil Engineering. So please go and find that, people.
Yeah,
because it's
please check it
amazing.
out. You want to know the truth? Like, read it yourself. It's totally
It,
awesome.
it does have a lot of interesting things, and you will have to use discernment. But it basically tells of Attila the Hun building Venice, and yeah.
Wait, so you got the Roman ships were called Trimaris, Quadramaris, and Quinquerimaris, and each one of these went to Terracina, the Terracina. So the scenic, the view of Terra, So when you start thinking about Terra,
this is Vecchia. Sorry, this is Civita Vecchia, and I know this Starfort very well. It is said to be not that old, but in this book it is very old.
Well,
Roman.
Vini Vici, right? So I came, I saw, I conquered. So Vicia. So this is the conquered. This is the city, the conquered city. Oh. So that's another interesting thing, is that this is not something the Romans are even saying that they built. They're even saying like this is the conquered city.
Yeah.
So this is older than whomever the Romans are supposed to be.
And we know from Bailey, he said that the progenitors of the Greeks and the Romans were the Tartarians.
It's Etruscan, Trojan, Tarojan, Tarasian, Tartarians. It's going to be really exciting because soon we're going to do a video with the guy Alex Morois from the Terran on history, because he's been really interested in talking to us more about history and the Greco-Tartarian history of the world. And so this is just another example of where, we're no longer questioning whether or not it existed. I think we're able to move past that. I think if you watch all the videos we've done so far, it's very obvious that this existed, that everyone's talking about it, that they don't understand it, and that it was beyond comprehension for them. And all of the world working together couldn't comprehend what Tartaria was. So, and also that there was a time when it was so fantastical, and then there became a time when it wasn't. So there's some sort of a disaster that happens.
Yeah, and Bailey talks of that. He talks about a highly scientific nation that progenited the Greeks and the Romans that was destroyed by a great catastrophe. That is exactly what he says.
So Ostia is the arcades at the east, right? And so Terracina, the size of the port and walls which surrounded it, showed its establishment was calculated for commerce. This is a hugely important thing, as well as from the protection of numerous navy. So this is hugely important because people often are saying, okay, every single evidence we have of these cities are based on war. No, they're not. It's just categorically false. I refuse to accept it. I'll give you 100 examples to the contrary, and I'll show you, at least with this one, this is a city designed for commerce. Commerce is the main function. Economy is the main function of these cities. Yeah. That's what allows for the nomads and the Marines, the Navy, to trade with each other, which is literally what it says. It literally mentions right there that you have this city was designed for commerce as well as the protection of numerous navy. So there's a connection between the people that are working for commercial, which are, there's hunters, gatherers, and farmers.
That would play into the communication theory.
And there's communication naval officers that are actually
so
working
let's just end again with the signal forts and towers and the communication galleries and stuff like that, such as these are Starfort lines, and they're called lines of communication.
So there you have it. Energy, electricity, the ability to communicate at rapid speeds, making it possible so that these people could send messages. And
for
of course,
commerce.
There was commerce more than it was about war, because why would you worry about, this is what the wall was for. You already have the wall, so it's past the war. Now you have mutually assured destruction. It's time to have commerce. It's time to trade. It's time to have equality and trying to make positive reciprocity. We have both sides.
This is so much a signal tower somehow, because they're called.
Wait, click on that. That was beautiful. Look at that for a second.
Wait. We need to show people the signal towers first.
Right.
So this is a signal fort.
So they have these signals, which the flagpoles tend to be signals that this area was a signal tower. And these areas would connect to other areas and be able to make communication between each other.
Signal tower.
And so at very least, you had Morse code like lights that flashed. You've seen Mulan on the Disney Channel. There's evidence that people were communicating with lights from hundreds of kilometers away from each other.
Because the Earth is flat.
Oh man, this guy, he should get a t-shirt. Well, all right, this is cool because I was just in Cordoba. I have videos of this stuff I'll post very soon, but I want you to know, just in the meantime, this is Cordoba, and Cordoba is the most important city north of Tartessus, because it's where all the electricity and energy, it was the most modern city to the most recent time. Like when the rest of the world was the most in the dark ages, Cordoba was the brightest light. It was the most shining thing. It had plumbing, it had electricity, and this is again 11th century. It's not like you heard. And there's camera obscuras, there's evidence that they had photographic technology that they could use. They might not have had celluloid, but they were using other things because they had plastics that could make into cellulose. Plastics. Okay, oil-based plastics in the 11th century.
Yeah, I think we just busted history.
I do think so. I think we've pretty well proven that this is it. This is what they're hiding, and it's pretty obvious. And now we need to move forward and figure out what happened exactly, because we have pretty good hypothesis, but I want to have a little bit more evidence what happened and why it fell. And I'm fairly convinced that Brittany is correct, that volcanic hydrothermal vents are responsible for the devastation, and they were probably technological energy stations that connected these star forts between each other using these hydrothermal vents for hydrothermal electricity, as well as, what did you call them? Star hydroelectric generators?
Electrostatic?
Electrostatic. Well, I'm just saying they're no longer just forts, because
they're hydraulic machines,
because
gas mining stations, and their communication hubs.
If you think about fort, it's a French word, forte, fort. It's a real word, and it means like my fort. That's my fort. That's what I'm interested in. That's my mon fort is mine. Like the thing that I'm good at. So this star forte, this fort, is the thing that is
they're good at.
They're good at, and what are they good at? Well, they're good at gold, cobalt, energy, gas, extraction, because they're getting minerals from the mountains, and they're getting thermal vents that have natural gas and different kind of propane and these different things. And these are also where you have divination, because they're divining while breathing in the vapors of these tunnels.
Indeed.
So it's pretty fascinating. I think we need to find out what exactly went wrong to Krakatoa, to Campi Flegrei, to Kilimanjaro, because there must have been something that happened, and that might have been what turned it off and caused decades, if not more, maybe centuries, of complete collapse of the energy systems and the internet. And if there was that kind of a collapse from such a high society to such a low point, then we both have found what's wrong with our model today, what's happening in our society as we're moving towards a wireless future where it'll be biodegradable and the entire society will degrade biologically very quickly, and what we might find ourselves in, which is what happened to them, because they clearly had some more technology, and then all of a sudden the lights went out, the power went gone, the water was not drinkable, and millions and millions and millions of people died.
Yeah.
So this is not just an interesting history video. I think this is important to us because we want to understand what's coming.
Indeed. And I think this will be where we end our little journey today. So thank you for listening.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Yeah.
It got dark here.
Where is this airing right now? Is this
Recent
This program is
Tartarian.
coming to you via Relay 2 satellite, a spacecraft orbiting the Earth at a speed of over 17,000 miles per hour.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarian.
Recent Tartarian.
Exertus.